Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhaled frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great.
Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gangway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer-mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical, Russ Belville.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back, Tokers and Tokettes. Glad to have you here. It's Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, on the air live from Boulder City, Nevada. That's right. I'm hanging out here in Nevada, just outside of the Lake Mead area, and going to try to make my way to the Hoover Dam. I've never been to the Hoover Dam. I think that would be pretty cool to see. So we'll try that. Our phone lines are open at 971-533-7111. That's 971-533-7111. And I'm hoping to hear from Marcus sometime soon. I got an email, or actually a tweet, from Marcus, the Afro Redneck. You may, if you follow my Instagram feed, when I was in Texas, I took a picture of a t-shirt, the damnedest thing. I took a picture of this t-shirt that someone had up for sale that was the Confederate flag, right? Stars and bars on the t-shirt. And then it had the words Afro Redneck across it. And I'm like, that's weird. I wonder who would wear a shirt like that. And then I walk outside and there's Marcus, this African-American gentleman, wearing the t-shirt. And so he said he'd like to call in sometime. I'd love to hear from him because I'm just interested in the perspective, right? Because we've heard so much about the Confederate flag and these southern states that are now, taking it down. South Carolina took their flag down and so forth. And I'm just wondering what his perspective is on that. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. It's a debate that to me seems pretty clear. It seems clear to me, right? Like, we are the United States of America. We are a country. And there was an insurgency in our country amongst 11 southern states that seceded unconstitutionally and formed a terrorist insurgency against our United States. They attacked our United States. And then they were defeated in that war at the cost of more Americans than any war before or since. And we let them fly that flag still? This is the flag of a terrorist insurgency that tried to destroy our country. Now, I hear the arguments, it's heritage. But that heritage is being the states that rebelled against the United States and tried to destroy it. And so I don't understand the celebration of that as a heritage. Now, I'm not making the direct comparison, but I'll at least point out that after the Germans lost World War II, the swastika was a banned symbol. You still can't show it in Germany. It's a banned symbol. Now, I don't agree with that. I'm pro First Amendment. I think show whatever symbol you want. I'm not saying ban the Confederate flag. I'm just saying I don't understand being proud of it. But, I could be wrong. Give me a call. Tell me I'm wrong. 971-533-7111. I did have a quick international note I wanted to bring to you, and this was a Supreme Court ruling in Denmark, of all places. And we've heard about Denmark lately because, Bernie Sanders was running, and he often brings up Denmark as an example of democratic socialism in action. But there is a ruling that came from the Supreme Court in Denmark that found that if you get a DUI for drugs, if you get a cannabis DUI, a pot DUI, it doesn't matter whether or not you were smoking the pot or it was secondhand smoke. That's right. This guy got busted for a DUI. He argued that it was the passenger in his car that was smoking weed, not him. But he still failed the tests and got the DUI, appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court. The Danish Supreme Court said, sorry, Charlie, any cannabis in your system is worthy of a DUI, no matter how it got there.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping ganjapreneurs grow.
Seed to sale, clicks to conversions, and more. You're listening to the Cannabis Radio Network.
Coming soon to a city near you, Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. Get all your cannabis accounting, legal, and compliance questions answered by their knowledgeable panel of industry experts who want to help your cannabis business boom. Whether you're a grower, dispensary operator, or a newcomer to the field, your cannabis business needs Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. For information on upcoming events, visit CannabisFinanceBootCamp.com.
This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Doc Rob, the concierge for better living.
Cannabis is just one of the many great plants that we have on this planet called Earth that we can use consciously and intelligently to improve our well-being.
Take a real, raw, inside look at healthier living while sharing great ideas and improvements for a better quality of life.
Learning to live and live well is a lifelong process. This is a journey. You could be 80 years old or 8 years old. You can still learn something that's going to make tomorrow a little bit healthier, a little bit easier, a little bit happier, a little bit better.
The concierge for better living with Doc Rob. Only on CannabisRadio.com.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argosville. What are you smoking there, boy? This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 8 after the hour here at CannabisRadio.com. I'm coming to you live from Boulder City, Nevada. Nice day today, kind of dry. Dehydrated as hell, I gotta be honest. The desert's really getting to me. We got some more international news for you on the cannabis front, and this latest story comes to us by way of MaryJane.com, MERRY Jane.com. This, of course, I believe this is the Snoop Dogg media outlet. This is his cannabis outlet. And they've been putting together some pretty good stories as of late. Their latest one is that the Brits are modeling their cannabis legislation after the U.S. There's a report being drafted by leaders in the UK to allow the legal purchase of cannabis in retail locations, which they estimate could generate 1 billion British pounds in tax revenue. Now, an interesting difference from the British view of legalization would be this would be for adults 18 and older. According to Norman Lamb of the Transform Drug Policy Foundation, quote, Steve Rolls, the chairman of the Transform Drug Policy Foundation, says, quote, the reality is that millions of people use cannabis in the UK, and there is a pressing need for government to take control of the trade from gangsters and unregulated dealers, end quote. Some of the points would be that adults would buy cannabis from single-purpose stores. That'd be just pot shops. Can't sell anything else there, like the marijuana dispensaries in Oregon and Colorado. there would be home cultivation of cannabis, legal for personal use, and small-scale licensed cannabis social clubs. Now, this is great news and would outdo what the legalization we have in Oregon and Colorado, because we're still fighting to get cannabis social clubs. My good friend Greg DeHote with the UK Cannabis Social Clubs, they've been pioneering this model for years now, and it's good to know that their sorts of clubs could be recognized as legal under these proposals in the UK. Unlike marijuana in Oregon and Colorado, however, branding, promoting, and advertising cannabis products would be banned. And this is something that's going to be easier to pull off in the UK than is to accomplish in the United States because of our robust First Amendment that protects commercial speech to a degree that it's not protected in the UK. A ban on cannabis advertising is perfectly legitimate in the UK. Of course, there'd be labeling of the potency and the ingredients, the cannabinoid profiles of the cannabis sold there. There would be a new government regulator established to oversee the market, and the price would be disproportionately high for higher strength cannabis to discourage sales of the most harmful forms of the drug. Now, an example, right? 10% THC bud would be regular price, 20% THC bud would be an extra 50% surcharge, extracts would be double the price. Example, this isn't in their guidelines. I'm just making up numbers, right, to give you an idea. And this is a terrible idea. The marketplace should set the prices of the products. This is the same sort of sin taxing idea that governments try to do with alcohol or tobacco. And if you're going to have a sin tax, that's fine, but you want your sin tax to be equal on all the products. See, a sin tax, if you were dealing with alcohol, right, and you put a 10% tax on beer, but a 50% tax on whiskey, that could work because beer ain't whiskey, right? But in the case of cannabis, if you put a sin tax on cannabis that is a greater sin tax for somebody that's using extracts than somebody that's using herb, then all you're going to do is incentivize people to buy a whole bunch of herb and process it themselves into extract in order to beat the tax, right? So keep the tax on the extract at the same level it would be as if you had gotten the equivalent amount of bud and then processed it into extract, then maybe you're talking. All right, let's go to our phone lines. We got a call coming in from the 765 area code. You're on the air with Toker Talk Radio. What's on your mind?
Yes, this is Bryce Keller from Green Fight over here in Ohio. Just running through my phone calls for the day and saw 420 radio and decided to give you guys a call.
Right on. What's happening in Ohio?
Well, lots of exciting stuff. On Thursday, March 31st, the Ohio State House Medical Marijuana Task Force will wrap up their hearings, and we're hoping that they'll come out with some sort of proposed legislation this summer.
Wasn't the Ohio legislature looking at some really limited type of medical marijuana, though, like no home grow and no smoking kind of stuff?
Well, we think that some of the people have asked questions in that vein, but Dr. Sue Cicely has even come out here and talked about how people have been, and particularly veterans, have been interacting with the medical marijuana community and the established market of marijuana, and that smoking and the access to home grow actually makes sense in a medical application format. So I hope that the Medical Marijuana Task Force really considers those issues. And in our Green Fight report that we intend to submit, we are going to be advocating for home grow as well.
And what is your group that's doing this advocate work?
Green Fight. So
okay.
We're a group of activists, and we provide activist tools to the community. There's a robust amount of groups, all with various names and with various objectives in Ohio, as Ohio is a very populous and it's a medium-sized state, so we have different corners of the state that are working on different issues that affect them. And Green Fight provides activist tools for all efforts for legalization.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you guys are working on that. For our listeners out there, can you tell them how to find you on the internet?
Yeah, so they can go to greenfightohio.com, or they can just simply put hashtag Greenfight, and then we'll run across them in due course.
Right on, man. I'm glad you're doing that. Now, how are the initiative battles looking? I know you said there's a lot of groups out there. I know MPP got theirs past the first hurdle with the Attorney General. Is it looking like those are viable this year?
MPP is very viable in Ohio. They have selected excellent leaders to run their campaign, and we are hoping for success. Success being having the opportunity for the electorate to consider their proposal at the November 2016 ballot. There's another group called Grassroots that is working on a patient rights-oriented or rights-oriented proposal that will leave some of it up to the legislature, from what I understand.
Okay.
And there is some concern about infighting that might result from that, but ultimately it's great that there are many people working on different paths. We actually have our Libertarian Party chair has somehow figured out a way to get a previous medical marijuana proposal placed through the Legislative Service Commission in Ohio, which allows it to be voted on and then signed by the governor. So it could be, really, if the governor wanted to make medical marijuana, there's a way to do it in rather short order.
Wow. All right. Well, we'll keep our eyes on those initiative possibilities. And it's my hope that the success of the people working the initiatives really kind of lights a fire underneath the Ohio legislature to realize they better, get on it, or else we're just going to go ahead and pass it without them.
Right. And I think that that's a theme that is playing out in Ohio. If you think about last year, we went from a kind of obscure state on marijuana because we have decriminalization here. Consumers are not criminals, and there's a decriminalization level at 100 grams. So people are thinking, well, it's not that bad. There's not a whole lot of persons in jail right now, but they're still feeling the pressure from where we captivated the nation by, I saw a Google map of everything that was searched in the various states. And the thing that led in Ohio was legalizing weed or some variation of it. So Green Fight was working on that project for the entirety of the year. And we are very proud of that fact that our people think that this is an issue that needs to be brought to the legislature. And I've attended all the medical marijuana task force meetings to date, and it seems like that viewpoint is being impressed upon them.
Well, that's great news. I want to thank you for calling in and telling us what's going on in Ohio. And I want to encourage other listeners out there as well. When we say this show is the voice of the marijuana nation, this is exactly what we're talking about. Your opportunity to call in and tell us what's going on in your state. You know better than we do. So thanks again for calling in. We appreciate it.
All right. Yes, sir.
Have a great day.
Bye.
All right. And the phone number is 971-533-7111. And if you're listening on podcast and you can't call in live, that's fine too, because our listener line has a 24-hour voice messaging system. So you can call anytime. Give us an update. It'll record for a long time. You can talk for 2-3 minutes and we'll be glad to play that. Let people know what's going on in your local area, because really the politics of marijuana reform happen best at the local level. What you can do in your city, even if it's like lowest law enforcement priority or even just a symbolic statement from your city council, can have a great effect as we move forward for statewide and national reforms. That's how we've passed everything so far.
There are some who call me Tim.
Tim the Enchanter has joined us here. It's 4:20 in the Pacific Time Zone. Happy 4:20 to everybody out there. No matter what time zone you're in, I hope you're able to enjoy this next safety briefing. When we come back, we got more in the marijuana news coming at you with a story about Sam, Oregon, and alcohol, the lesser of two evils. Stay tuned.
Tommy Chong is ready to cut through the smoke and change the tone of Tilk Radio.
During Dance with the Stars, I started feeling discomfort. Yeah. And not only that, I was doing these old man smells. And it was kind of embarrassing because, all the Dancing with the Stars crew, cast and crew, they were all young kids. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this old guy would come along and do one of those silent farts, that you don't know you're doing it. Yeah. And all of a sudden you smell, and everybody go, what the hell smells? And, and it was me. And so I'd scurry off to the bathroom, and that's when I knew that there was something wrong.
The Tommy Chong Podcast, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome to my world.
The Russ Belville Show. We're as much like Cheech and Chong as ordinary Americans are like the Three Stooges. Hey, Mo!
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at norml.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
Every strain, every sale, every medical study. Keep it right here on the Cannabis Radio Network.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why'd I come in here? You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's 23 after the hour, and for this segment, we got some debunking to do. We got some names to call, and this first one, of course, is a regular that we discuss here on the show, and that's Project Sam, the so-called smart approaches to marijuana. I like to call him Project Samuel, smart approaches to marijuana use except legalization. And they have chapters now. Project Sam is headed by Kevin Sabet, who's the longtime drug warrior, and Sabet is the best of these guys. And by best, I mean most capable, most able to spin the layers of bullshit and still keep a straight face, right? The most effective of their crew. And by no means is that a compliment. I'm just saying, technically speaking, as an orator, as a presenter, as a debater, Kevin Sabet's the best they got. And I wipe the floor with Kevin Sabet. So the rest of them are more like the Bush League. And one of the Bush Leaguers out there is a guy by the name of Randy Philbrick. He's the head of Project Sam's Oregon chapter. Now, imagine what you got to be the guy who wants to fight to recriminalize marijuana in legal Oregon. Imagine that you're that guy. Now, I can see why Kevin Sabet would pick Randy, because that's right up Kevin Sabet's alley. Kevin Sabet actually started his career at the University of California, Berkeley, forming a group called Students for a Drug-Free Berkeley, which he jokes, this is Kevin Sabet's own joke, he says is like forming Frenchmen for a wine-free France. And he thinks that's a funny joke, right? No, it would be offensive to Frenchmen, and well, offensive to all of us, and especially people at the University of Berkeley, to say that Berkeley, for God's sake, we're talking about hippy dippy trippy land. Anyway, so that's Kevin Sabet, but this Randy Philbrick kind of fits the mold because he's another one of these guys that's tilting at windmills, has this quixotic quest to try to really recriminalize marijuana in the state of Oregon. So he put out this post on Facebook, and it's an offense to all the medical marijuana patients in the state of Oregon. Let me just read it verbatim. He says, quote, Oregon legislators this past session passed a bill that will allow some dispensaries to sell recreational marijuana and medical marijuana under the same roof. The OLCC, however, is not pleased about this move because they want regulations to track marijuana from seed to sale. Medical marijuana dispensaries don't have that regulation, and the OLCC feels that this policy will undermine their regulations. But seeing as there is no such thing as, quote, medical, end quote, marijuana, wouldn't calling a dispensary medical or recreational just be semantics? If you've noticed the spike in OMMP card applications since legalization, it's a safe assumption that medical marijuana dispensaries will be recreational dispensaries anyway. And then there's the myth that the OLCC is pushing that you can regulate a plant that can reproduce. Well, first of all, when he says, what's the line here? There is no such thing as medical marijuana. Well, first of all, he says THEIR. There is no such thing. So can't even, properly communicate using the English language, but there is no such thing as medical marijuana. Now, I'm going to shock you a bit here because I agree. There is no such thing as medical marijuana. There is such a thing as marijuana. And that marijuana can have great medical benefits for the people who need those medical benefits. But there's nothing about the marijuana that's called medical marijuana that is any different from the marijuana that is called marijuana or recreational marijuana, so to speak. If I get a bud of Super Silver Haze that's 24% THC and I hold it up in front of you, is that medical marijuana or is that recreational marijuana? Well, it doesn't make any difference. It's marijuana. It's just marijuana, man. Now, if I'm sick, if I got epilepsy, maybe I vaporize that Super Silver Haze and it cures my seizures. Or maybe I'm bored on a Saturday night and I smoke that Super Silver Haze and I watch Netflix and eat Cheetos and go to bed. It doesn't, whether or not what my purpose is in using it doesn't magically transmogrify the substance into some other substance. Now, the other thing that's funny about this is how he's saying there's this massive spike in patient applications. Currently, the latest statistical snapshot for the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program showed 77,000 patients. January 2016, latest data. January 2015 data shows 70,000 patients. So it went from 70 to 77,000. That's supposedly a massive spike, an increase by 10%. Now, I've got data from the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program that goes back quite a ways, and I'm going to see if I can find some of this Oregon data for you because I don't think that 10% increase is really much of a difference. Let's see, Oregon Medical Marijuana.xlx. Let's pull that little Excel file up here. And that's not the one I'm needing, so let's try a different one. But we have had roughly the same increase in medical marijuana patients year by year over time. I don't think that we've had any sort of massive spike. I'm going to have to find those numbers because I don't seem to find them right there in the Excel folder. Let's see if I've got a chart of this information from Oregon. But saying there's some sort of massive spike, I think, is a mistelling of the data, misreading of the data. I'll look that up for you a little bit later. The other problem with the Project Sam point of view here is this myth that the OLCSE is pushing that you can regulate a plant that can reproduce. What kind of silly word salad is that Randy just tossed up? We're supposed to think that the government can't regulate a plant that can reproduce? What in the fuck is the Department of Agriculture then? Every state has one, Randy. Every state has a Department of Agriculture. The federal government has a Department of Agriculture. The very purpose of the department is to regulate plants that reproduce. What an amazing non sequitur that is. But at the core of what Randy's saying in this post, I can find some agreement. Because I, too, disagree with this artificial distinction that tries to separate marijuana into two separate markets called recreational and medical. As far as I'm concerned, marijuana is a product that is for sale, and the reason you need to buy it is irrelevant. The only meaningful distinction in marijuana commerce is personal versus commercial. Whether or not I'm growing a bunch of plants at home for my own personal use and thereby don't need to be under the thumb of the government regulating my every move because it's just I'm growing my own zucchini. I'm growing my own potatoes. I'm growing my own corn. I'm growing my own cannabis plants. There should be the similar level of concern. With one exception, I am fine with there being laws that say you got to keep the plants secured just because the reality that we live under a prohibition that makes those plants worth stealing and the value of that makes it worth defending and the value of that makes it worth violence, and we don't need that. And I'm fine with regulations that punish people that recklessly allow their kids to get a hold of marijuana. Though I'm not necessarily in favor of punishing parents who let their kids use marijuana. So might have some wiggle room in this area, but there's a lot of states where the law on alcohol is that kids can't have alcohol unless it's at home with their parents' permission. And that is, a lot of times that is for, religious reasons, parents having ceremonies with wine and letting the kids have wine. But in other circumstances, it's just cultural. Where, it's okay for you and the son to bond as father and son and share a Pabst Blue Ribbon or something. And I think I can support that as well when we're talking about marijuana, because we're not talking about something that used once or twice responsibly with parental supervision is going to cause a massive problem for the kid. There's a lot of gray in some of this stuff, folks. Sometimes it's not all black and white. I know a lot of parents, I can tell you right off top, I know a lot of parents who use marijuana and share with their kids. And I'm talking kids, not even 18 yet. Sometimes 16 I've seen. Sometimes I've seen 14-year-olds whose parents smoke in front of their kids and allow their kids to smoke marijuana. And these kids are getting fine grades. They're not juvenile delinquents. They're fine, right? I've got a lot of colleagues who grew up, I talked to them. When did you first start smoking pot? Oh, like I was 12, I was 13, right? And they're doing fine. They're existing just fine, right? So there's a lot of gray area in this. I think there's a lot of difference between a parent who wants to share that experience with their kids and has the attitude of, well, I'm going to let you do it here with me supervised rather than sneaking behind my back and doing it out in the alley with your friends. Versus the parent who's negligent, leaves their stash out, doesn't know their kid is sneaking into it and using it and taking it to school and selling it to the other kids. That's where, there's a responsibility element to this that makes a huge difference. And that's why I also oppose, these blanket laws and what do they call mandatory minimums and such that take this sort of discretion out of a judge's hands. I think there are cases where, you find the kid with marijuana, and if the parents come in to trial and we don't see any harm to the kid's getting good grades, he's not physically harmed, the parents are fine with it and are aware of what's going on and have given their permission, I think there ought to be leeway for a judge to say, hey, this is a family matter. This family seems to have it under control. These are going to be difficult questions as we continue to move on this spectrum of legalization throughout the states. You know, we've come to grips with legalized alcohol, and we've come to recognize that there is some leeway in the parental relationship governing alcohol, where it's not necessarily frowned upon for the dad to have a beer with the son before he's of legal age to drink beer. You know me, my rule, make it 18 for everything. 18 years old, you're an adult for everything. Voting, joining the army, getting married, tobacco, alcohol, marijuana. 18 for everything. Or getting your high school diploma. You want to see those dropout rates fall through the floor? Make your high school diploma your weed card, man. watch those kids be paying real close attention around test time. Be right back.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
We have your smoking section right here. This is the Cannabis Radio Network.
With over 6 years of experience in the industry, New Era CPAs is one of the nation's leading cannabis accounting firms, helping hundreds of growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies with their tax, legal, and business strategies. New Era CPAs offices cover the West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and their skilled team is always available to help you take your business to the next level. Visit neweracpas.com for more info and set up a consultation. Welcome to the new era.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
The smoke is rising, and the next crop of podcasts devoted to cannabis providers and enthusiasts are ready to be harvested. Welcome to the Cannabis Radio Network, founded by respected rainmakers who have been producing award-winning podcasts for over a decade. Industry headlines, business updates, medical reports, marketing, and e-commerce education rolled up perfectly for your consumption. Let's grow together. The Cannabis Radio Network. CannabisRadio.com.
Pod 2.0. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 38 after the hour here from beautiful Boulder City, Nevada. So we've been covering this study for the past few days. It's been up on Newsweek and USA Today, and it just gets a lot of ink because anytime there's a study that says something bad about marijuana, you can guarantee it's ultimate clickbait. Everybody wants to read it. And this is the one that does more of the number crunching on the data from Dunedin, New Zealand. So this Dunedin data has been like a treasure trove for prohibitionists to come up with all these latest scare data about marijuana consumption. The first Dunedin data was the 6-point or the 8-point IQ drop. You've heard that one over and over again. And the latest one is the one that says that the marijuana users who used early in life often have worse financial outcomes later in life. Okay, and we've been covering all this. And the Dunedin data is interesting because what they are in New Zealand, they've got, national health care like a civilized society would have. And so they're able to have regular screenings of their population. And so they've been following this one group 947 individuals in this group. They've been following them through the years. And so every 2-3 years, they can do an update and find out what's going on with these guys. So what they found is that 18% of the people that were involved in this were marijuana dependent, and 15% were classified as regular cannabis users. Then obviously there's got to be a lot of overlap in that. And it was 11 follow-up assessments from birth to age 38. This is the Dunedin, New Zealand data. So what they found, according to the research team, was regular cannabis users experienced downward social mobility and more financial problems, such as troubles with debt and cash flow, than those who did not report such persistent use. Regular long-term users also had more antisocial behaviors at work, such as stealing money or lying to get a job, and experienced more relationship problems, such as intimate partner violence and controlling abuse. The findings remained constant even after controlling for such factors as childhood socioeconomic problems, lower IQ scores, depression, and antisocial behavior in adolescence, lower motivation to achieve, higher levels of impulsivity, criminal convictions, and the abuse of alcohol and other drugs. So supposedly, in this test, they've controlled for everything. What they haven't controlled for is prohibition. The very fact that the drug is prohibited makes it a criminal act to be involved with the procuring, possession, and use of that contraband substance. That in and of itself is going to lead to the possibility of a worse outcome in life, just statistically speaking. You know, they say they try to control for criminal convictions, but how can you control for the criminal conviction when the behaviors in your life are going to be motivated to avoid a criminal conviction? What I'm saying here is, even if you took into account people who were unlucky enough to get busted, the people who were lucky enough not to get busted were only lucky enough because they were exhibiting behaviors, they were exhibiting a due diligence to paying attention to what they're doing and their choices to avoid getting busted. It's that observational bias. It's the situation where, reality TV isn't really reality TV because the minute you put a camera on someone, they behave in an unreal fashion. Well, same thing is going for people under marijuana prohibition. Because it's illegal, they're behaving in a way to avoid criminality. Now, those behaviors can include things like not trying to get a particular scholarship because that scholarship has a drug test, or not applying for a particular job because that job has a particular drug test, or having a job and then losing that job because you tested positive on a drug test. And when they see this antisocial behaviors at work, like stealing money or lying to get a job, well, just trying to get a job, if you're a drug user that asks you whether or not you use drugs, you have to lie to get the job. And the stealing money and such, well, if you're on a job and you've been working hard and you get thrown off of that job for a factor having nothing to do with how good of an employee you are, but because you tested positive on a drug test, well, maybe you've got a little bit of an attitude and you swipe some stuff from the company on your way out. So there's just more propensity, there's more likelihood for these people to be in the situations that would lead to these problems. And then we say intimate partner violence and controlling abuse, as if we're supposed to believe regular marijuana smokers are the people who turn into the folks that beat their spouses. No, what causes relationship problems like that, intimate partner violence like that, is the frustration in life, is being oppressed and repressed, that leads one to lash out and be violent when we're taking alcohol out of the situation. So yeah, if your life is more stressful because drug tests and the criminality of drugs has forced you into a lower life position, being in a lower life position, being in poverty causes more stress. More stress leads to more intimate partner violence. There's so much chicken and the egg in this, like what caused what, that you can't really make the case they're trying to make. In this, they also point out that they say both alcohol and cannabis abusers experienced similar declines in social class. They were both more likely to carry out antisocial behaviors in the workplace and to have relationship problems. So both alcohol and pot led to the same worse outcome when it came to those factors. However, heavy cannabis users were more likely than the alcohol abusers to have severe financial difficulties, such as reporting difficulty finding enough money to eat. Well, yeah, and that's making my point for me. What's the difference between alcohol and cannabis in that respect? You don't lose your job for alcohol. They don't test you for alcohol. There's no social pressure to not use alcohol. There's no need to have to hide the fact that you're a drinker from your coworkers. Those factors exist when we're talking about cannabis. And then this final quote. This is another one that bothers me because you hear it from Kevin Sabet and other drug legal prohibitionists. They say, quote, alcohol is still a bigger problem than cannabis because alcohol use is more prevalent than cannabis use. But as the legalization of cannabis increases around the world, the economic and social burden posed by regular cannabis use could increase as well. Bullshit! Alcohol is a bigger problem than cannabis because it is a worse drug. Pharmacologically speaking, the effects of alcohol cause more impairment, more bad judgment, more aggression than cannabis. This is their argument they're trying to make. They're trying to say, well, look, half the people drink. And since half the people drink, a certain percentage of them are going to be problem drinkers. And a certain percentage of problem drinkers is going to cause problems in society. Now, marijuana, only 8% of the people use marijuana, and a certain percentage of them will have a problem, and a certain percentage of them will cause problems to society, not just themselves. So if we make the 8% bigger, then that's going to make that small sliver of the bad people bigger, and there'll be more problems. Yeah, but what are the problems that you get from the marijuana user as compared to the alcohol user? On the one-to-one basis, give me one alcoholic and one pothead, I will show you more damage to society from the alcoholic. So even if there is an increase in marijuana users, how much damage they cause to society still only increases by how harmful they were in the first place. And unlike alcohol, where indeed we only make $1 in tax revenues for every $10 in problems from that small sliver that give us the problems, with marijuana, we bring in far much more in tax revenue than any problems that are created by the small sliver of people that are cannabis abusers that hurt society. Increasing how many cannabis users there are would therefore increase how much tax revenue comes in and actually have a net positive benefit in harm reduction, since we would be bringing in still so much more money in tax revenue to help those cannabis users. And furthermore, one last point. When cannabis is illegal, the small sliver of people that do have the cannabis problem can't report it. They're not like the small sliver of alcoholics who can get all sorts of social sympathy and treatment options for the alcoholism. When you're a pothead and you do have a problem with it, just admitting that can cost you your job. When we legalize it, we allow people, that small sliver that do have the problems, to be able to come forth, to be able to get their health care, and to be able to help themselves with their dependence issue. And you know, here on the Russ Belville Show, I never shy away from accepting the fact that some people do have a problem with marijuana. It's just a whole lot smaller group of people in comparison to the people who have problems with other drugs. And that's not to demonize other drugs. That's just to recognize the reality of the addiction potential of these different substances. There are physiological, psychopharmacological differences in these molecules. Even though we feel we should treat all drug consumers with respect, and that none of them should be criminals for what they do to themselves, we still have to recognize that different drugs do different things. That's only just a reality that we should all, it shouldn't be even controversial for us to accept that. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will start to close up the show here for you on CannabisRadio.com, give you a preview of who's coming up the rest of the week here from Las Vegas, and then next week we'll be back in Portland, Oregon, and we'll give you the lineup for next week's shows as well.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Growing green to generate more green.
Hello to all you happy herbalizers, smiling trippy hippies, and everyone who believes in freedom and tolerance. This is The Grow Show, and I'm Kyle Cushman.
From food to fuel, from remedy to resource.
Welcome my guest, Ed Rosenthal, the guru of ganja. Let me ask you, right now I hear your lighter clicking. Are you smoking indoor or are you smoking sun-grown?
What am I smoking? I'm smoking concentrate.
Way to get out of the answer there. So you're truly like the king, right? You just clap your hands and somebody brings you a bowl and you're all set, right?
I wish that were the case.
The Grow Show with Kyle Cushman, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Get the latest updates on the Russ Belville Show by following Radical Russ on Twitter and liking the Russ Belville Show on Facebook.
It's time for Cannabis Facts about teen drug use from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org. This message is supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. A recent survey by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control indicates that in states that have legalized medical marijuana, the rate of marijuana consumption among high school students has not increased. In fact, in legal states like Colorado, teen use has actually decreased significantly. It's simply no longer a big deal for teenagers in legal states. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Yarr! Thar be pirates here! Har, 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 har. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Closing up shop here at Cannabis Radio on the Russ Belville Show, reminding you to tune in the rest of this week, except Thursday. I'll be off on Thursday because I'm flying back to Portland. But on tomorrow's show, we've got Hemp Day Hump Day. Doug Fine will be joining us, giving us the latest update on industrial hemp from around the world. And then on Friday, April Fool's Day, we've got Matt from MedX talking about MedX product. And then next week in Portland, a full lineup. Monday, of course, Dr. Mitch with our Cannabis Q&A. Tuesday, Chris Thompson from Normal on our activist agenda. We've got Vincent Medizadeh, I think his name is pronounced, the author of Huma Rising, will be joining us on Wednesday's show. On Thursday's show, another great speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, Cops Say Legalize Drugs. And on Friday's show, Kevin McCormick will be joining us, and he is running for office in Arizona and wants to make marijuana reform a part of his platform, so we'll talk to him about that. If you've got guest suggestions or you want to get your interview on the Russ Belville Show, just contact me. I'm available at Radical Russ everywhere, and that includes Gmail, radicalruss@gmail.com, and we'll talk about it. I'll send you out to Kaliko, and he'll work out how we can get an interview, maybe a sponsorship package taken care of for you. That would be great. We also have been talking about the schedule for the Russ Belville Show. And again, I'll probably be out at the Blazers versus Nugs show at the Moda Center on Wednesday, April 13th. And then on the 14th through the 16th, Patients Out of Time Conference in Baltimore, as well as the 15th through the 17th SSDP Conference in Washington, D.C., as well as Mark Kleiman's Cannabis Summit, the 17th and 18th in New York, followed by the United Nations General Assembly Special Session in New York City, UNGAS. Then I'll be flying back to Oregon for Sunday the 24th, the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference. Tommy Chong and Dr. Carl Hart are headlining. And now I'm adding some new events for the last week of April. And I'm really looking forward to this because I'll get to add 2 more states to my back tattoo of places that I've visited. I've been invited to be a speaker and a correspondent to cover the Unity Torch, the Unity Cipher Torch that's making its way from Portland, Maine, all the way to Miami, Florida. And the idea is to raise awareness and camaraderie amongst East Coast marijuana reformers. So Portland, Maine, all the way to Miami, Florida. I'm going to join them in North Carolina. So this will be on Monday, the 25th. I'll make my way to Raleigh, North Carolina. Wednesday, it'll be in South Carolina, and I'll be visiting Timmy Harris, a.k.a. Big Daddy Fink, in South Carolina. And then the 29th and 30th, the Unity Torch will be in Atlanta, Georgia. Then we make our way to Jacksonville, Florida, May 1st through 3rd. Orlando, Florida, May 4th through 5th. And then Miami on May 6th. And then I'll be flying back to Dallas for the Global Cannabis March on May 7th. So that's the outlook for the next few weeks here on the Russ Belville Show. So we really appreciate all your support. And if you've been a long-time listener and would like to show your donation in dollars, we could really use that as well. Just PayPal some money my way. Russ@radicalruss.com is the PayPal address. And we will be upgrading the radicalruss.com website here very shortly. In fact, all the next couple of weeks in Portland, that's what I'm going to be working on. Got a new podcasting platform we're going to put forth on radicalruss.com and reintroduce the concept of our VIPs. I've had a number of you who've been donating for years through PayPal as 420 Radio VIPs. We're going to convert that. You won't have to do anything. You'll be automatically converted to a radicalruss.com VIP, and we'll have all sorts of special stuff for you once we get that set up. But that's all the time we got for today. It's been a great 2 hours hanging out and talking with you. Thanks for joining us. Tell your friends all about the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com. We are the voice of the Marijuana Nation, and I will be out here covering the world of marijuana legalization and reform from state to state and country to country. And it will always be free for you to hear. Thanks for sharing. For everybody here at CannabisRadio.com and live here in Boulder City, Nevada, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.